Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's BA Insights session. This week, we'll be talking about Service Catalogue. Once again, I'm joined by a group of excellent guests to join me on the topic and to talk about Service Catalogue. Before we get into that, I'm going to start by asking Igor to introduce himself, and then we'll work our way around the rest of the group. So to you, Igor, please.
Thanks, John. Hello, everybody. My name is Igor, and I'm a business analyst, and I've been doing it for way longer than I expected when I started my career, that's for sure. Most recently, I've joined National Australian Bank as a business analyst manager, looking after a team of BAs in the financial crime operations unit. I also have a hobby business of mine where I teach people business analysis and how to do it correctly and how to prepare for different IIBA exams. So that's me.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Igor. Okay, and Chris, over to you, please.
Hey everyone, good to meet you all, and thanks John for having me. My name's Chris. I've been working in the change environment probably around 20 years. Most of that as a practicing business analyst, so I consider myself a bit of a BA nerd. I love this stuff, and I've dedicated most of my career to it. I am currently running the business analysis service for West Midlands Police, which is one of the biggest police forces in the UK. I've been doing that for about the last couple of years.
Excellent, thank you, Chris. And Peter.
Hi everyone, thanks John. You find me with a bit of a husky voice today, so apologies for that, but I will persevere on as much as I can. I've been a BA for around 15 years, solely in the financial services sector. I'm based in Bristol in the United Kingdom, and I work for a financial services company at the moment where I head up the BA practice, and that's me.
Excellent, thank you, Peter. Okay, and Tosin, over to you for an introduction.
Hello everyone. My name is Tosin. So I'm from Nigeria, and I've been practicing BA for as long as I can remember. So I've worked with the likes of edtechs. I've worked on edtechs products as well as edutech. So currently I'm working with an edutech of which I'm a co-founder. So I'm working just to improve the process and to make sure that everything works well. I work with the likes of some other Y Combinator programs to make sure that our program is able to actually achieve some fundings, and also to make sure that the process is going right way here in Nigeria. So we are looking to cover mostly West Africa for now, while we are also looking on how to expand in a later year. So majorly, we are just bringing up something that is a little bit different. I know it might be something happening before, but we are trying to look for edtech that can bring people from the skill for them to be able to get to the business knowledge, for them to be able to own a business. So not just only acquiring the skill, but for them to be able to earn a knowledge about the business they want to start. So thank you for having me all.
Okay, you're welcome, Tosin. All right, thank you very much again, everybody, for joining. Let's start then with the most foundational question, really, is what is a service catalogue and how it's used? And Igor, I'd like to ask you that question, please. Well, let's start with you first.
Yeah, let me start, and I guess stop me when I've said enough, because that's one of the topics I can talk about forever. And there's good reason for that, because I think BA Service Catalogue is an extremely useful tool, and it actually took me a while to realize how useful it can be. So I guess many years ago, when I just started my first kind of attempts at leading BA teams, I was thinking, well, how do I articulate what do we do as a team, and how do I articulate it both for external stakeholders, but also internally for our practitioners, so we can be aligned at, what do we do? What is the value that we add as business analysts? And at first I didn't know, or I guess the concept of catalog didn't occur to me. So I was just trying to produce some sort of process documents, some other, just declarations of what we do. And then a couple of years ago, I had a chat with a guy who's from UK, Jamie Toyin, and he mentioned to me that at some point he was building a BA Service Catalogue at one of the UK government departments, I guess. So I guess I'm not very close to how your government is organized. But that's when I was like, oh, actually, that makes sense. I can apply the concept of a service catalog to business analysis work and use it as a tool to articulate what do we do, as a tool to put together some reusable artifacts, some references for people who are actually delivering those services, and eventually use it also as a tool for professional development for the practitioners, because they will know what is it that they want to, or that they need to deliver to their stakeholders, and where there are gaps in their skills or experience, we can work on those gaps because we have a full map of things that a well-established business analyst should be able to do in that organization. So for me, that's kind of the essence of a catalog like that. So it's a communication tool, but also a tool to align practitioners and a tool for professional development.
Excellent, thank you, Igor. It's nice to frame it in terms of what do we do. You know, that service catalog is a window into that, I think. So yeah, an excellent start. Thank you. And Chris, it'd be interesting to hear your perspective, please.
Sure. Yeah, I absolutely agree with Igor. I was in a similar place. You know, I've been practicing BA, as I say, for a good sort of 15 years or so. And I'd worked on so many different projects and things without the concept of a service catalogue. It's just you're a BA that gets assigned to a project to do various activities. So it was one thing that was clearly missing when I took over in the role. I think I came onto it came aware of it with the research that I was doing around how to build a service and a practice, really. And absolutely, again, agree with Igor. It is great to bring as a tool to bring everybody together. So I look at it in quite hopefully simple terms, in that, you know, if you look at what a catalogue is in general terms, it's a list of things, items, products, goods that you would want to look at as a customer to see what you might be interested in from a company to buy, let's say. So, you know, from a user experience perspective, from a customer experience perspective, it acts as that window into the organization there to go, actually, what are they about? Is this enough to interest me? Is this the kind of, you know, organization that fits with my values and what I need? And then you start to look into it and you can browse that catalog and get more information to understand if you want to go ahead with it. So from a business analysis perspective, I think a BA Service Catalogue does the same job. It's that window for the customer into the service to say, actually, what is it? What have they got? You know, the main distinction there being it's services we're talking about. So, you know, what are the activities, the assistance, the supports that they can give me to help me? And if you do it right, which hopefully I think we're getting there with ours, you know, then it acts as that communication tool, absolutely, for the customers to work with you. And I'm a firm believer in that collaboration with the customers. And I think it will act as that tool to bring you both closer together to understand what it is you can achieve together and create that value.
Yeah, I would agree, Chris. Peter?
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo everything already said, really, and more. I think I also was a late discoverer of the BA Service Framework or the BA Service Catalogue, but I've developed a mild obsession with it since the last sort of 18 months, 2 years. My introduction to it was really through the Delivering Business Analysis textbook written by Deborah Paul and Christina Lovelock, which I think, you know, is a very popular textbook, and it describes it very well. And we've really tried to kind of experiment by stealing that ruthlessly, and then trying obviously to implement it within our organization. And yeah, it's been hugely successful, and it's actually led to other abilities then within the team. So I think, you know, there was a mention there around focusing on internally around, you know, personal development, skills development, being able to then focus on the activities and the services within the framework or catalogue to allow us to improve the quality and consistency. Whereas before we were kind of a bit of a scattergun approach, and we were sort of doing everything, and we we're trying to do everything well, which was hard. Whereas now we've got a much more focused approach, so we can really home in on what are the key value proposition services and activities that we can offer, and how can we improve those and make them as best as we possibly can. So yeah, it's been very, very effective, and my obsession continues.
I'm glad, Peter, that you mentioned the book by Debbie and Christina as well, because certainly I was planning to plug it because I also had a look at that and read through it myself a few months ago. I think having been introduced to it maybe at a conference, I think when I was shortly after being introduced to the concept of a service catalogue, I was then shortly aware of Debbie and Christina's book, and it does give some, as you'd imagine, some excellent advice as to, you know, what are the basics, how to set the framework up, and certainly some of it, at least some of it, we've adopted ourselves for sure. So thanks for getting in ahead and calling that one out. And Tosin, just over to you on that question.
Okay, so in addition to what many of us we have actually spoken about, I see catalog, service catalog as something that functions like a restaurant menu where you can actually see nearly everything that is comprising or available, a services, a support system that you'll be able to get when it comes to a particular IT firm or anything. So it just gives you a structure, a better structure, and of the design stakeholders from customers to everything. So bringing everything together to be able to support anybody that is using that particular service at any point in time. So it gives you an easy access to resources of what is available concerning any product or anything. So I've seen it over and over. And here it might take a little while before we adopt something here in Africa. But I think over time, I've seen people actually trying to do something similar for people to be able to get everything that they are offering at once, maybe, and make it very user-friendly for people to be able to use. So it's a very good thing. So, but I've not seen it more in Africa, but I believe over time it's going to be something that people will start using, and it's going to be one of the things that people will start building. Thank you.
I'm sure, and actually, I like the use of the menu term as well, Tosin. I mean, maybe a BA service menu will come up as a term in Africa in a few years' time, courtesy of yourself. But beyond that, I mean, it's not a huge amount. I think I would add. I mean, we certainly use it for like both an internal view to similar. I think it's report to what Igor was mentioning in terms of giving that view of the different services BAs could offer, to use it as a first window then into further training and other assets and artifacts and areas where internal workforce can get assistance. We also use it for an external facing view as well, so we can share with our clients and our customers and our stakeholders a view on what is business analysis. And for me, that is actually quite often a very useful window to be able to present in the first instance, because it's probably quite easy for our stakeholders to appreciate that as a BA, we're involved in requirements, we're involved in process, but they don't often appreciate that there's a lot of other things that we do. And that window, perhaps for some anyway, just gives them that understanding. And maybe for the rest of us, it then gives us an opportunity to talk about some of those other topics and other areas of expertise that we have as BAs. So it feels like probably I won't say anything more without running the risk of repeating what you've all articulated. So thank you for that. I guess now, Chris, I mean, I'd like to ask you really in terms of your own service catalogue, in terms of what is in your service catalogue, or what would, and perhaps for anyone that hasn't got a service catalogue, what might they expect? So I think you mentioned you obviously have got a service catalogue. So what would we see in your service catalogue, Chris?
Yeah, so I think I'd start just a little step before that, which is just sort of what are we trying to achieve with the content and the tone of the service catalogue. I pick up on a point that Tosin made about it being user friendly. And I pick up on your point as well about we do lots and lots of things, and it's about how we focus those down into the key bits that really jump out. So I guess my approach was always to look at it that, yes, there's lots of things we do. And again, I've read that book as well, and I've based some of the things I've done on the service catalogue from that as well. So you could look at some of the things, and you could easily pick out services such as requirements definition or requirements management. You could easily pick out things like process modeling or process improvement. You could easily pick out things like user acceptance testing. I have a slight niggle with that level of pitching your services, because I think it gets quite tactical, and you could almost end up writing 20, 30, 40 different things that we do potentially. So what we've done in West Mids, and what I've tried to do, is focus really on obviously the strategic aims and objectives of the force, what it is they want to achieve, and who our customer base is. So we are an in-house BA service, so we provide consultancy support in a variety of areas to our customers, which are our 12,000 officers and civilian staff. So I've focused more on trying to make the service offer as relatable and understandable as possible. I don't get many of them coming to me and saying we could really do with some requirements management, for example. You know, that doesn't tend to be in their mindset generally, apart from those who are very experienced in change. But what they will come to me with is things like, you know, we've got a problem over here, we've got a performance issue, we've got a blocker, we need some help in trying to understand how to break that, or we need help trying to improve how we work because we've got new targets and we need to work towards that. So to actually get round to your question of what's in our service catalogue, one of the things that we've got in there is problem analysis and identification, which underneath that will have a lot of underpinning tools and techniques. But what we try and do with that is say, it's that value proposition that I think someone mentioned earlier, is what can we offer to the customers so they can understand that we can offer them some real value. So we will say, well, we can help define your problem. You know, often our customers don't fully know what their problems are, right? Because that's why they need the support from us. So we can define your problem, we can identify your root cause, you know, we can evaluate the impacts that this problem is having on you, and we can look at identifying solutions and ways in which we can improve that. So I have found with our service catalogue that's resonated much better with our customers because they can identify with that. You know, they can look at that and go, yeah, that's definitely something we want. So I've explored that a bit further, and I think we've got about 6 areas in our service catalogue. I won't go over them all, but another one being change and architecture assurance.
Chris has just hit the punchline of change in architecture there. So I guess he's using that as a handover point to perhaps to Peter, if we wouldn't mind. Or perhaps we'll chat about your service catalogue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a shame. I was just getting into that. I was really find that interesting, but never mind. No, I mean, I think, you know, to echo there what was said, I think it's really important to sort of translate. You know, we're BAs. We're used to translating things, aren't we? And I think it's really important to translate the activities that we would do as BAs, and we might find in our service catalogue from our own internal benefit, to language and to a value proposition that our customers, internal customers, external customers might understand and appreciate more of. So we have got a lot more to do on that front, but we've got 6 key services, and within those services we've articulated some key activities that we perform, but we've also then tried to translate what each of those means from a value proposition perspective to our we're an internal team, to our internal customers within our organization. And that's been quite effective, because I think if we don't do that translation, it's just we're not appreciated, we don't want it understood. But why would I want a BA to come in and do an options assessment and help me kind of, you know, understand the feasibility of this thing? I'll do that myself. Well, actually, if we explain that, you know, we can pull the relevant data together and help you make an informed decision, then I think the stakeholders and the customers kind of get that and they can understand that a bit better. But we've got, as I said earlier, you know, we stole our BA service framework ruthlessly from the, you know, industry best practice. Why not? And so our service framework looks a lot like that. But then we've tweaked it so along the way where we've had discussions with our stakeholders to understand what they understand and how do we talk to them in a language that they can appreciate.
Yeah, and it's definitely coming across there in terms of both what you were saying, Peter, Chris, previously. And Chris, we will go back to you. I know you dropped the mic after saying the word architecture, but I suppose definitely what's come across from speaking to you both in the last few minutes is that the service catalogue, similar to actually Tosin's view of it being a menu, you know, is such that it needs to be something when the client, the stakeholders, the customers are looking at it, they can appreciate what we mean. So it's no good putting technical BA terms on our service catalogue in the same way if we went to a restaurant and it's entirely in a language we can't read, that's no good to us. You know, we need to be able to see what's in front of us, what are the services, and being able to understand it, at least in a way that's appropriate. So that's certainly come clear.
John, I was going to add there, I think there's a lot that I've learned personally from organizations like the one that you work for in terms of consultancies, because I think consultancies have to translate that and market themselves in terms of talking about value proposition to potential external customers and clients really well. You know, that's how the business is structured. So I've personally learned an awful lot from looking at how consultancies do that and try to apply that to our own internal model.
Thank you, Peter. And Chris, I know you did drop off at just saying the word architecture there. I think it's only right we let you finish your sentence before going on to
Sure.
Tosin.
Yeah, apologies for that. Not sure what happened, but I won't mention the word again, just in case that is what caused it. But yeah, the reason I was using that as an example, if you like, around assurance is because one of the aims and objectives of our organisation is to drive as much business-led change as possible. And, you know, they're moving not away from a project and program construct, because we still do those, but almost that continuous improvement, get on board, do some of your own stuff, recognize where you've got your own problems and you are empowered to fix them, but we've got a function here that can help you. So our service has developed to say, well, we can do things for you, we can do things with you, and we can also support you. So our assurance capability is around that critical friend, really. We'll come in and we might share some tools and templates. We might give you some advice as to how you might set something up, things you need to think about. We might run a workshop or two for you. And where that's come from is it's come directly from what the business needs from us and what the customers need, you know, what our staff need. You know, they don't always need us to put a big project wrapper around everything. And the reason I raise it is because that shows between that and my previous example of the problem identification, that's two very different ways of using a BA and the BA service. So I kind of echo a lot of what Pete said as well. You know, it's getting those core sort of set of services together. And we've done a lot of work on our value proposition as well, in terms of why is it how can we make it worth your while? How like Pete said, we do get that feedback. Well, we can do this. Well, sometimes it's, well, we know you can do it, but if we just show you a bit of this, we can show you actually what else you can do, or have you thought about this? And with a real customer focus on, I think we have to change the way we look at things from a BA, certainly in today's world and way of doing things, to be a lot more rounded, a lot more customer focused, a lot more service oriented, and be a lot more flexible and adaptable with the way that we work with the business to make sure we're making them, you know, getting the most value. So I think I just summarize by just saying, I think we've got 6 areas. We are, again, as Pete said, we're constantly tweaking and adapting that. And, you know, I'm sure we'll get to it later, but we do quite a bit of monitoring as to which services are utilised by whom and how we're getting on with those. So we can see, actually, is there a gap in the organisation that's emerging? You know, the organisation itself is developing very, very rapidly in some really interesting places. So we need to keep up with that. So the service catalogue isn't a static piece, it's an ongoing piece for us.
Yeah, and we may well touch on that topic again later, I'm sure. But no, thank you, Chris, for finishing and topping and tailing what you were saying earlier. And Tosin, over to you.
Okay, so I actually appreciate what Chris and Pete said the other time. I love the fact that Chris mentions problem impact and problem analysis, which I think is very, very important when we're looking into on how we are looking on solving all these services problem. So service catalog is just to detail a proper process executions informations. Just like he mentions of it, like looking at the problem, how the problem is being analyzed and how it's being solved. So this will show the improvement. I think here I'm just going to be mentioning Africa because I see many African translating from the traditional way to the more advanced way. For instance, at times that a customer, for every person that attends to you, there's need for a customer service. But right now there's what we call self-services, whereby you yourself, you can actually know nearly everything that is actually happening within that organization, even without anybody attending to you. So like a self-services, of which I knew these people started it on supermarket and some other thing, whereby there's a price catalog somewhere you can actually see everything, the details of everything. And it's just an improvement like that in IT too, whereby BAs must be able to see how this problem is being solved from the processing, from the availability of what we are doing, to routing, to processing, to executions, informations, to be able to manage individual services at any point in time we are onboarding them. So just like the point they mentioned is very, very key when we are looking into service catalog for any organizations, especially IT, because nearly everything right now in Africa, I think fintech is taking the lead, followed by edtech and some edtech. E-commerce is also coming up, because e-commerce actually started these self-services, whereby people don't have to attend to you anymore. Everything you need can just be viewed at once and be able to get every information you need. So BA must be able to execute this in a very simple manner. And that is why I feel like service catalog must be very simple for anybody operating, because it's self-service for anybody looking at it.
And an interesting perspective on that as well, Tosin, in the fact that for many BAs, they've probably been working on whether it's a service catalogue or a taxonomy or high-level processes or some other deliverables that look quite similar, and applying that similar mentality to what they deliver for their clients. But there isn't necessarily that same framework or catalogue that exists to represent their own activities. So it's quite an interesting correlation. And Igor, over to you on that question as well.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I think a lot of good things were said, and probably just to follow up on, I don't remember someone's point about making the catalog understood by your stakeholders. I think just reflecting on how I've done it a few times at different organizations, really the catalog is probably a reflection of what your stakeholders expect from your practice and what is what they see as value that is being delivered. Because if you look at the business analysis like end-to-end as an end-to-end big huge service or thing that we do, you can break it down into different elements in many different ways, right? There is this awful saying, there is more than one way to skin a cat. It's very well applied to this situation. So the question is, how do you actually break it down into elements or subservices that make sense, both from the point of view of your stakeholders, they understand what they're dealing with, but also from the point of view of your delivery. So you want each individual service to be something that is almost self-contained and not dependent on other items from the same list, because otherwise you lose that, I guess, that serviceability of the services, right? You can't deliver it on its own as a thing. And as a result, you can't properly scope it, assess it, estimate it, resource it, and so on and so forth. So from that point of view, I guess, saw two very different approaches to this. One, when I was working in a consulting business, our service catalog was effectively a shopping list for potential clients. So these were the services that we as a consulting organization could offer to a potential client to deliver to them, and they were ready to pay good money to get their services delivered. So those services were really, I guess, high level, consisting of a lot of different deliverables, steps, people involved, because they were end-to-end products. And I compare that to the service catalog that we've got now. And the audience that is using that service catalog are people involved in technical delivery of technology, multi-technology projects, technology and business projects. And for them, the level of detail and I guess the level of abstraction is very different. So they look at very granular, very individual things that they know they need for their project to succeed. So here we talk specifically about things like specific types of requirements or specific types of go-live activities that a business analyst will be supporting. Definitely very different level of detail compared to that consulting service. But end of the day, they are all part of one big value add activity that we call business analysis.
And I mean, I think it's just on top of what you said and what everyone else has said. I mean, probably there's many correlations between what I'm hearing and what we have on our service catalogues, so things like problems and process. We also call out things like functional design as well. We've got also, we tend to group things to make it a little bit easier for people to digest a perhaps logical set of services that they might adopt in parallel. So as an example, there'll be some process related services that it might be appropriate for certain clients to take on at one point, or for internal individuals to think about together. You know, another grouping might be around functional architecture and analysis. We might have a number of services within that. But a different lens we also put within the service catalogue is reflecting the correlation between business analysis and some other consulting topics or offerings that we have. So as an example, I won't give a full list, but we will talk about business analysis in technology, or business analysis and data, business analysis in the metaverse or in Gen AI, you know. So just to give that recognition that those things like technology are not a completely different service that happen without any BA interaction as well. So I think that's probably something I would add. And I think as we're talking about those different things, you could see that you know, probably as much like a taxonomy, when we take each of our services, we tend to group ours into some logical themes. So that's how we would structure it. But it'd be interesting, perhaps start with yourself, Peter, in terms of, you know, is there a particular way you structure your own service catalogue?
Not particularly. I mean, so we've sort of taken it from the best practice that's available out there, and we've structured it that way. But then we've sort of broken it down and translated that into our value proposition. So we've got kind of a few different lenses, kind of an internal lens and an external lens. And the external lens is that value proposition piece. But then from an internal perspective, our BA Service Framework or BA Service Catalogue is then used for multiple different things. So we've then got links from that to our BA Skills Framework, for example. So we're trying to have this skills framework for personal development purposes. The individuals can then assess themselves against the activities and services within our framework or catalogue, and assess themselves and then spot, development gaps and growths and things like that. So it's kind of linked off and it goes off on different tangents. We've also got links from our BA Service Framework to best practice guides. So for each of the services and activities, we try and have a consistent way in which we approach those services and activities that's shared across the BA function. And I suppose similarly to that, we've also then got a statement of work. So although we're an internal function within our organization, we found it really useful to link the BA Service Framework or Catalogue to each individual initiative, because every initiative is different, as we know as a BA. What the toolbox, the activities, the services that you apply to that initiative are very different. Well, it can be very different. So for each initiative and each BA within that initiative, we call out which activities, well, from the menu, if you like, from the menu that we can provide, what is it that this problem needs? And so we link all that back to the service framework. So if you kind of put all of that together, we've almost got really multiple versions of our BA Service Framework that's serving multiple purposes throughout the organization, but it's all kind of linked to that one central place.
And where your service catalogue is held at the moment, Peter, is it a document, or is it a SharePoint site or a website? What would it look like for someone perhaps coming in for the first time?
Yeah, so we have a multitude of internal communication tools, which is one place worse than having just singular one in a way. So we've got a few different versions of it. They look identical, but we've got one in Confluence, we've got one in SharePoint, and we wanted to make sure that everyone in the organization could access it. So we kind of signpost it, and we link it, and we try and get people to come and have a look through it as much as we possibly can. And then obviously we kind of alongside that, we have, like, if you feel like this is of value to you, here's how to get access to a business analyst. So we very much link it to that, and so that we can then have those conversations with the relevant stakeholders. So often, we're aware of the need and we're going proactively talking to them. But if there's a chance that they see it and they come to us, then all the better, But that's how we share it today.
And sorry to not save your voice with that extra question, but I mean, I think what you was going into there, Peter, was very obvious to me that perhaps when we go to Tosin and later to Chris and Igor, that this is important to talk about not just how your service catalogue is structured, but perhaps how it's presented and where it's made available to people as well. So, gents, if you care to answer the question from any of those directions, that's perfectly appropriate. So thanks for giving that signpost, Peter. Tosin, so I would like to ask that question to you, really, in terms of how your service catalogue is structured or indeed visualized. To take the cue from Peter.
Okay, thank you. So in creating a service catalog, I think the most important thing is we must make it visually appealing to anybody that is going to be working on it, be it stakeholder or any stakeholder that is definitely going to be working on the development teams, the stakeholders that already give you the requirement. So it must be very visual appealing to anybody. So, and the attribute offering must be able to show the cost availability and also expected date of fulfillment, which is very, very important to be displayed on each of how the catalog is going to be structured. And in my own opinion, I will always say we should always avoid something that is too long. So once you are putting in a visualization, say it should be able to carry everything needed for you to demonstrate the process rather than making it very long. So it should be just dynamic in a way that anybody coming across it can easily understand what you are trying to point them at. So it should be always, we should always avoid something very long and always deliver something very dynamic that is conditioned based on the actions that is required from the stakeholder. So that's how I'm going to say the catalog.
Yeah, an excellent point there, Tosin. Yeah, because if you just want to make this appealing to people to look at in the same way that whether it's a menu or a catalogue of another theme, people need to be able to look at it, get what they need from it, and want to engage with it as well. So really, really important point. And Igor, over to you on that question.
Thank you. So probably need to start by taking a step back and give you a bit of a context for our catalog. So organization that I work for is a 40,000 people strong organization. So it's pretty huge. And with that scale, there comes benefits and challenges, right? And one of the big challenges is to get people aligned in the way they do certain things. So to solve that problem, our bank has a central orchestration team that designs end-to-end processes that all the different parts of the organization, the ones that we call domains, need to follow, so that focusing on our own subject matters, we kind of follow similar steps and use similar processes and similar artifacts. So the outcome of that work is, or rather one of the outcomes of that work is an end-to-end delivery process that all the domains are following. So that process has certain stages and certain definitions for different roles and different typical artifacts and quality gates for all the stages. Now, the question is then, how do we take that model and make it work for a particular domain? Because as any model, it is probably a little bit too high level to be applied immediately. It needs to be tailored so that it works to the specifics of the projects and specifics of the people that we've got. And that is, I guess, the gap that our service catalog helps us solve. So basically, what we did when we created the first version of the catalog, we looked at the end-to-end process, looked at all the major phases of the process and analyzed, okay, what are the things that other participants of the process may expect from a business analyst who is involved in that process? And that thinking helped us define the first version of the services. So basically, our catalog is structured along the end-to-end delivery process that a business analyst is engaged on. And for every stage of the process, there is a list of items that a business analyst can do for a project, should the project need it from that particular practitioner. So basically, we use it as a tool to kind of make an end-to-end process, a bit of high-level process, more actionable, and then explain it in terms of engagement from a particular practitioner. So to answer your other question, how it is organized or where it is stored, it is rather ugly. So it's a page on Confluence that has a huge table, but a decent table where every item is a service, and it links through to a separate page or collection of pages that explains in more detail what is involved in the service, which reusable templates, artifacts, or processes a person can use when delivering the service. It may have some links to reference artifacts. So not so much a template, but an example to have a look at how someone else did the same thing or delivered the same service. So you can use it more as an inspiration, I guess, to come up with something that will work for your engagement rather than trying to come up with these templates. Because again, talking about huge scale, it's very hard to create templates that can be tailored to every potential situation, but it is kind of easy to give examples of what good looks like so that next person can look at it and kind of consider what can be reused or aspire to repeat some of the good things from there. So yeah, that's how it is organized and structured.
Thank you, Igor. And Chris, over to you on that.
Yeah, echoing most of the points from the panel, really. I think we've focused ours on trying to make it obviously visually impactful for the customer, but also then helps, on the other hand, to drive how we build our services and how it links to effectively how we run our services. So I think the key components for me, as
Sorry, Chris, a bit of feedback on the line on your side. Is it just me, or is it?
Okay. Is that any better?
No. Yeah, actually, yes, it is. Sorry, that's gone. It's gone. Carry on.
Okay. So yeah, so I think the key components, as obvious as it sounds, are the service name and the service description. And I know that sounds really obvious, but for me, that's that elevator pitch moment of just trying to grab people's attention. You know, we can do a lot of work in the background. We can put a lot of padding around it and a lot of stuff that our internal team and our internal stakeholders need in terms of who are supporting the service. But to get it out there, we really need that to ping and to be quite simple, but to grab people's attention and to make them want to take that service. So that's largely where the focus of ours is. And of course, that value proposition as well, which really nails, you know, what is it that it's not just what we can offer, but how is this relevant to you? Because it is very difficult to translate BA services into general business speak, certainly in our organisation. So it's about making it relatable. That's where most of our focus has been. Similar to Pete's point about best practice guides, we also link ours then to sort of our core activities and deliverables for each service, our core tools and techniques. Again, a standard list, not an exhaustive list. You know, things are different, you know, depending on the work that you do. But that really helps us focus our services sort of inwardly as well, and can be used to support the customer in understanding what they might get at the end. I think the bit we fall down on, and we store ours internally on SharePoint and also on our intranet site, is I think our means of getting it across to our customers and really getting it out there and getting it understood, I think, is the bit that we struggle on. That's one of our particular challenges that we're working through at the moment. I'm happy that we've got the right level, but it's how do we make it impactful to them, and how do we put it into their daily business so that they care enough to lift their head up and actually understand what it is we're coming to them with. Because in a policing organisation, you know, as with anything, I suppose, but their focus is on operational policing and protecting the public. So that's their day job. They have as part of their day job, they also have change, but it's trying to balance the scales a little bit more and get them to make notice of it. So I see the service catalogue has been really important to that, but we're only part way onto that journey.
Yeah, and it raises an interesting point in terms of making sure that actually what we're delivering is easy to access to the people that we need it to. So whether it's our stakeholders, our sponsors, our clients, actually it shouldn't be hard work for them to have to interpret it or to engage with it. It should be very obvious to them what it is and what it's trying to deliver. And it's certainly, you know, even through this conversation, makes me think of a few improvements we can make on our one as a result of that. That's for sure. I wonder as well, I mean, in the interest of time, we have a few more questions, but I'm going to mix it up a little bit. So we'll start off with Tosin anyway. But yeah, I'd like to even know from you, really, what assets does your service catalogue link to? And I think as an example, I think Peter spoke about skills matrix would be one example, but you might have others. I think otherwise, the other side is to think about how you might identify the services that are appropriate to put in your service catalogue, or how did you identify them? So the choice is yours, gents, as you answer either question. But we can start with Tosin on whichever question he wants to answer.
Okay, so I get your question, like on what's the requirement that should be in the service catalog, if I get correctly.
So it wasn't quite that. So it was how do you determine the services in your service catalog? So how did you figure out the different services that were appropriate to put in your catalog? Think about that one. Okay,
so I think the major thing here is looking at the priority of the let me say firstly what's the stakeholders' requirement. So which one should come first? So because they know what they want concerning the product or the services you are actually offering to them. So based on what they actually requested, so it will depend that will be the major determinant of how the service catalog is going to be structured. So for instance, they want some deliverables to be done earlier than others. So that way I should be able to make sure that their requirements, and at some time, I think Igor mentioned something like alignment. So yes, it's not always easier to get some people to align, because sometimes the stakeholders might not also align concerning what you also come first. But as a BA, the service must be able to align with how we want it to be. Because, for instance, if you are building a particular product that for instance, the front end and the back end and the alignment have to come first before the other. So the requirements given to them must be able to align for you to be able to know, oh, this is how the service is going to be structured, for you to be able to get the end result you are actually looking at.
Thank you, Tosin. And I wonder, Peter, I can ask you that same, one of those two questions, whichever.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, in terms of how we determined the services and activities that went into our service framework or catalog, obviously, it's really important to understand the stakeholder, the customer's viewpoint. How did we do that? Because obviously, you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of potential stakeholders and customers within any given organization. And I asked, and I lent heavily on our BA community, because our BA community collectively are a very skilled, engaged, proactive bunch, and they knew their stakeholders inside out far better than I do. And so we made it a community effort to form our service catalogue and refine it as we go along. And we have to kind of have those conversations with all of our stakeholders continually to understand what is it, what are the problems that they have, what are their desires, what are their needs, and how can we potentially come up with the answers to those. When we formed the service catalogue, one of the interesting things was you can't kind of talk about what we do without talking about what we don't do. And so we also identified a list of activities that we felt that we weren't best placed to perform. It's not to say we can't, because BAs are a very well-rounded change professional community. But we have on that, we also have a list of what's not on our catalogue. And that's proved extremely useful. And that includes things like, I don't know, for us personally, functional testing, ownership of product backlogs, being the actual decision makers on behalf of the business, performing user testing, potentially controversial. We very much want the users to be the user testers. It's not to say we don't support them, but we're not the user testers. And so having that list was also really helpful to again, share with, sensitively share with our stakeholders to say, you may not need a BA for this initiative, or if you do need a BA, we're going to do this bit of it, but we're not going to do that bit of it. And again, it's about having that focus, then that we can focus on our value proposition, and we can potentially help resource any given project or initiative correctly and in the right way. One other point on that, I suppose, is the other internal advantage to that. It's allowed some of our BA community to realize, well, actually, okay, now I understand much better around what it is to be a BA. I want to do functional testing. I want to be a product manager, and we've actually enabled people to make career choices off the back of our BA service framework. I never thought in a million years that would be a result from creating this service catalogue, but that's been a fantastic result. We've been able to retain really good people within the organization on a slightly different career path, which has been an unexpected result.
Thanks for that. It shows as well, that there is a BA community often in organizations, and that framework and that the service catalogue doesn't need to be put in place by one person. It quite often can be an organic thing. It's certainly something that needs the collaboration of the BAs in the organisation, but also others in the business as well, the stakeholders and clients. So thanks for that, Peter. And Igor, good start. Over to you.
Thanks, John. So I'm actually of the opinion that it doesn't really matter how do you come up with the first list of services, as long as there is a starting point. It can be taking something from the industry, reusing something, a brainstorm, just asking people around for opinions. I think what is important is then how do you maintain that catalog, and how do you build those feedback loops to make sure that your services are relevant over time. So I think that if you manage to nail that bit to get those feedback loops and some quality controls that will tell you which services are actually in demand, used, referred to often, and which seem confusing or irrelevant. That is the important thing that will make the catalog actually a living, breathing document that will evolve over time and won't be just a snapshot of thinking at a moment in time. So a great example from just my recent experience, we had a service in the catalog which was called UAT, User Acceptance Testing. Pete, to your point, it evolved into facilitation of UAT because exactly the same thinking, right? We don't do UAT on behalf of the users do it, but our job is to support them so they can actually do it properly and get the most value out of the activity. So what we're trying to do there is getting the feedback from our practitioners. So the initial draft of the catalog, and every once in a while, we run the capability sessions with our business analysts who form our chapter. And in those capability sessions, we originally focused on the full breadth of the catalog and just looked for obvious gaps, issues, problems, something that is confusing. And over time, we moved to a more targeted sessions where we look at a particular service or collection of services and see how we're tracking with them, something we need to talk about, something we need to improve, or if there are any observations or insights from the fields, from the trenches, from people who are actually doing this, that we need to incorporate into the catalog. Another thing that we are implementing right now as we speak is a series of quality checks. So eventually we want to build a quality framework around the catalog that will help us ensure both that all the services are delivered to expected level of quality, but also that the services themselves are defined in a way that enables people to deliver that quality outcome. So some tangible outcomes of that work are, for example, implementation of peer review process, implementation of some more robust planning for business analysis work. And for example, in the peer review, one of the steps of the process is actually when a business analyst is reviewing an artifact produced by another business analyst to compare it to a corresponding service in the catalog and look for two things. One, is there something in the artifact that needs to be improved based on what is in the catalog? But two, is there something in the catalog that needs to be updated based on what the person has come up with in their artifact? Because effectively those artifacts, they are kind of the latest advancement in that service, right? This is how it is delivered today and not how it was delivered before. So probably there are some learnings or best practices there that we couldn't think about when we created the service.
Yeah, makes sense. And Chris, before we close, I should give you opportunity to talk about your view on either the visualization or structure.
Thanks, John. I think I'll cover off most of the things that have already been covered, to be fair. I think if I pick up on the assets point, I think if you're defining a service catalogue that is no doubt built on a vision and a direction and what you want to achieve, then everything you build from that point on should be linked to it in some way, whether formally or informally. One of the focuses we have had with the service is not just looking at the tools and techniques and the development of those skills, but also looking at the softer skills as well. So in terms of what do we expect, we say service, but what do we mean by service? So obviously there's the generic of what we mean by service, but how do we define ourselves by our behaviours and our values and our mindsets? What can the customer expect from us when we deliver these services in terms of our collaboration approach and style, our communication, what we'll do for them? So it's looking, yes, at the hard skills, but it's also looking at the soft skills. And I think that's important to embed, and we do that. We do also link to our document repositories and our standards, and as Pete said, best practice guides. We're developing those, so that absolutely makes sense. Linked to Igor's point as well around development, that's a really important point. We do need to constantly be looking at how we can develop. So we, in our performance and demand management processes, we try and link as much as we can end to end. So when a piece of work is commissioned, what services are we looking to give to the customer as a result of that, and tracking that all the way through, so we can start to build a profile of each of the services in terms of other factors. So even things like total effort or typical effort on those sorts of things. Customer feedback, we're implementing a feedback mechanism so we can actually, we could be doing brilliantly over here, but this is one area where we've got some bits to learn. So I think part of the service catalogue and linking it to assets isn't just how you deliver that service, it's how you develop that service continuously. And QA is another great example as well. So I think, yeah, all of those good things and more. And that's the power ultimately of the service catalogue, is that it can drive all of those things and give everybody a focus to have that identity and direction.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And there's not too much I would add, to be fair. I think from talking to all of you over the last hour, given an excellent view, I think, for others as well, as what is a service catalogue, what could be in it, how it can be structured, how it can work, the fact that it needs to be something that can be understood by many different stakeholders, and then touching on a few of the last things as well, it needs to be something that can grow and will change and adapt as well. So I'm not sure with all those things that we've summarised, I could do it justice by adding anything more. So perhaps I'll cut my losses at that point and merely just thank you all for being on the session. Thank you for your excellent insights that you're sharing and the advice that you've been sharing as well. I've certainly learned plenty in the last hour. I'm sure others will as well. So thank you, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the future and hearing from you across the BA community as well in the future. So thank you very much, gents.
Thank you, John. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.